Hey everyone, DisturbedShadow here, back to bring you another album review. Today I'm finally getting back to continuing on with my Avenged Sevenfold discography, which I have been neglecting as of late, as I've had a busy time moving and stuff, and I also reviewed a couple new album plus another in my series of reviews of 10 albums from 10 years ago. But I'm finally back to bring you the review of the fifth studio album from Avenged Sevenfold, which was released back in 2010, which is, of course, Nightmare. So let's just jump in and talk about some of the tracks on this album and why it is awesome. So we'll start off with the opening track, the title track, Nightmare, which is one of the better tracks on the album. It's just a really great way to open up the album. And I've said this before, but Avenged Sevenfold is really good at making opening tracks. Although the first two albums didn't really do that. They had those sort of short, like 1-2 minute intro tracks. But the next three albums are really set of that. Beast and the Harlot, Critical Acclaim, and Nightmare all are three super awesome opening tracks where they've really mastered the art of doing these opening tracks, which really sets the tone for each album. And again, Nightmare does a great job of setting up the album. Nightmare there's this really cool I don't know what instrument it is, but this little intro, so it's almost like a music box sort of sound, but it's not really a music box. And then it comes in with this really heavy, evil guitar riff, and it just has a really great ring to it that just, I don't know, really gets you in the mood. And then it comes in with these really heavy riffs and stuff like that, these heavy rhythm riffs, and some great rhythmic pounding drums that just really get you in the mood. And then it jumps into this great, like, melodic chorus that, I don't know, it's got pianos in it, and then all the guys are doing backing vocals. It just has a really great sound to it, and it's just really fun to sing along with. And I've seen them perform it live twice, and it just has such a great tone setter for the crowd. It's just a really great track overall, and it's a really great way to introduce this album. And then it flows right into the second track, which is another single off the album, which is Welcome to the Family, which is another of my personal favorite tracks on the album. It's got this really groovy guitar riff to it, and it's this really catchy verse and chorus that really pulls you into the song. And there's great guitar work throughout the whole thing. It's really got a great feel to it. It's just a really great track overall. Next track I want to talk about, track number 3, Danger Line, which sort of has this simplistic guitar stuff going on. It's sort of marching beat sound to it, and lyrically it sort of deals with like a soldier in war who dies, and it's just got a really interesting thing going on for it. And then at the end it sort of pulls back, and it's just piano and this sort of like military drum beat sort of sound to it, and then there's just then it pulls back to a very melodic guitar solo that's reminiscent of the trumpet piece that they play at soldiers' funerals. And then it fades back to just the piano and the drums, and then there's a whistle as it fades out. It's got an interesting sound to it, and I really like what they did with this track. It's a very, very different track from some of the stuff they've done before. It's a really solid track overall. Track number 4, Buried Alive, which is another one of the singles they released. It's just a really great build up to the song. It sort of starts with this soft melodic thing going on, and then harmonized lead guitars, and then it just really a great sound to it as it sort of alternates between that, and then it gets sort of heavy and crunchier in the chorus. Then it jumps back to the that more melodic bit, and then it gets heavier again. And then after that second chorus, it just, the whole tone of the song changes, and sort of almost sort of like, it's reminiscent of Metallica's One, where it has this sort of soft, clean guitar sound to it, and then it goes heavy, then it goes soft again, then it goes heavy, and then it goes even heavier. It sort of has that same progression to it, where it just gets these really heavy, fast-paced riffs come in, and the drums get heavier, and just the vocals are more screamy, almost in your face. There's a lot more punch to them. And then there's some great shreddy guitar stuff happening that just has a great sound to it. And I just really love the way that this song progresses. Next song I want to talk about is track number 5, Natural Born Killer, which just has a really great sound to it. Some really awesome guitar riffs and some great drumming stuff. Not much else to say about it, but it's just a really solid track overall. Track number 6, So Far Away, which is a ballad of one of the ballads on the album, which I believe I read that it was originally intended as a memoriam for Synyster Gates' grandfather, who had recently passed away. But as you know, the Rev passed away during the writing of this album, so it sort of became a tribute to him. And the first time I saw them live, it was the first tour they did right after this album came out, and they sort of played this as a tribute to him. And I think it really fits that. And I really like the thing they're doing with the more acoustic guitar stuff happening. Then it has those very soaring, emotional, melodic guitar bits over it. And just lyrically, it's a very powerful song, and M Shadows really delivers on the vocals on this track, with the more melodic singing, and then the other parts where he sort of gets that grit in his voice, and just it's a great track overall. Track number 7, which in my opinion sort of rounds out the really stellar start to this album, with the first half. It's a little over the first half actually, but the first lineup of 7 songs is sort of where the album really packs its punch, and it really, the final punch there is God Hates Us, which is track number 7, which is just really heavy number. And they sort of take a page out of Slayer's book with the whole God Hates Us thing, and lyrically it's very reminiscent of something a Slayer might write, but stylistically it's very Avenged Sevenfold, and it's got a little bit of that old school metalcore roots in it, where M Shadows has a lot of screaming stuff, which he sort of left behind, but he brings it back on this track. It's just a really heavy, powerful song. I really love it. And then the solo is just so shreddy and so good. And just everything about the song just comes together really nicely. And that's a really great, it's the heaviest track on the album. It's just really awesome, kick-ass song. And then this is where the album sort of loses its steam a little bit. The next few tracks are sort of slow. They sort of lose the heavy hitters. But they're still alright tracks, particularly Victim and Tonight the World Dies, which are pretty decent tracks, but looking at my play count on iTunes, I sort of tend to skip these songs a lot more than some of the other ones. They're still really good songs. The interesting thing about Tonight the World Dies is that Synyster Gates' dad, who is also known as Guitar Guy, who played guitar bits for the comedian Jeff Dunham, and he's also a comedian himself, but he also plays the guitar, and he played the guitar solo on Tonight the World Dies, according to Wikipedia. Don't know if that's true, but it probably is, considering he's worked with the band before, especially on their City of Evil album. Anyway, just interesting about Tonight the World Dies. Track number 10, Fiction. It's another slow song, but it's really interesting because the song is pretty much exclusively piano, with a bit of organ towards the end, and then the drums, of course. What's known about this is one of the last songs that Rev actually performed on, and he actually does co-lead vocals on this track with M Shadows. And they play those clips live when they perform it live, just as a memory to him. It's just an interesting thing. He's just a really unique sounding voice. It's different than the singing style he performed on their last album, but it's just kind of interesting. But I really like the way this song comes together. The piano work is really nice, and then it's just got a great feel overall. Anyway, it's a pretty decent track. And then finally we come into the final track, track number 11, It Saved Me, which clocks in at 10 minutes and 57 seconds, making it, I think, one of the, if not the longest Avenged Sevenfold track. I think maybe something on City of Evil might have been that long, but I can't remember. But I think this is at least one of their longest tracks. It's just got a really great feel to it. There's great guitar riffs all the way through, and then there's a part in the middle where the guitar stuff gets really awesome and badass, and I just love the way it comes together. And there's all sorts of great instrumentation throughout this whole song. They change things up constantly before bringing it back to the chorus again. And then it's got a really great ending piece with pianos and guitars and stuff. It's got a really great sound to it, and it's a great way to close out the album, and it's a really super solid track, and sort of brings the album back at the end. So anyway, that's just my rundown of the particular tracks. Now we're going to talk about the band members themselves. So I'll just start with guitar. Zacky Vengeance and Synyster Gates on the guitars, doing some pretty awesome stuff. The stuff where they're doing they're playing dual lead stuff on like Nightmare and Buried Alive, and even some parts of God Hates Us, where they really pack the dual lead style that they're sort of synonymous with. It's a bit different than other dual lead stuff, but it's very unique sound, the Avenged Sevenfold dual guitars that they have. Even just Synyster Gates by himself has that sort of signature sound on his guitar, that sort of evil but very melodic sound to it, which is very apparent in songs like Nightmare, and then the more uplifting melodic stuff like on Danger Line, where he sort of has a different tone to it. But I think what they're really, really strong is with those evil-sounding guitar riffs, like on Nightmare, like I keep mentioning, which is probably my favorite track on the album. And even more rhythm riffs, like Natural Born Killer is pretty much all rhythm guitars. It's just got this really heavy, crunchy riff to it that just has a great sound to it. And of course, they're doing stuff with acoustic guitars, like on Victim and So Far Away, and the clean guitar tone, like also on Victim, as well as Danger Line and Buried Alive. So they mix things up a bit and throw in a lot of different guitar styles to keep things interesting. Moving on, Johnny Christ on bass. He's turned up loud in the mix, even without my subwoofer speakers or with headphones. I can always hear what he's doing. And there's some moments where he does deviate from what the guitars are doing, especially on the more pulled back, simplistic songs, or the songs where they focus on acoustic guitars. Like Victim and Danger Line and Buried Alive all have very apparent bass parts. And even Welcome to the Family has some really cool bass stuff that's deviating from what the guitars are doing. So he's doing a great job, and he's continuing to improve his bass style. And he's always nice and loud in the mix, so it's just exactly what I like to hear. M Shadows on the vocals. This guy has an awesome voice, as I like to say every time. Even though some people like to rag on him for his voice, I think he's got a very unique sound, and it works for the type of music that they're making. And he's really doing a lot of different styles on this album, or the more melodic stuff, like on So Far Away, the more gritty stuff, like on Nightmare, and even throwing in screams, especially on God Hates Us, but also in Buried Alive and some other places on the album, sort of callbacks to the old school Avenged Sevenfold style. So it's really neat that he did that, and as I always say, he's got a very unique and powerful voice. And finally, let's talk about the drums. Of course, we have to mention, of course, that the Rev passed away during the writing of this album, which is really sad. But it is great that he did manage to write most of the drum arrangements for this album. Even a few bits where actually, I believe he may have recorded some of the drums. I'm not exactly sure. But he arranged pretty much all the drums. So it's great that he was able to do that before he passed on. And what's really awesome is they got ex-Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy to come in and play the drums on the album. And he does a really great job playing true to the Rev style, and it's sort of a great tribute. But I believe Mike Portnoy was sort of the Rev's big inspiration as a drummer, and it's cool that he came on and played with these guys who are a lot younger than him and sort of lent his drumming talents to this. He does a great job. There's all of these great drumming moments, the more pulled back simplistic stuff like on Danger Line, where it's got the more simplistic sort of marching beat to it, or more crazy stuff like on God Hates Us, and sort of the in-between of that, where jumping between the more pulled back and simplistic and the hectic stuff like on Danger Line and Nightmare, where he mixes it up. So he's doing a fantastic job on drums, and he fits in perfectly with Avenged Sevenfold as the studio drummer for this album. So it's really awesome that he did that. Anyway, that wraps up my thoughts on the band themselves. For closing thoughts on the album, it's not Avenged Sevenfold's best album, but it's still a really solid album. It's definitely worth checking out. Almost every track is amazing. There are a few tracks that are not amazing, but they're still great, and they're worth listening to, even though they're not as good as some of the stuff Avenged Sevenfold does. It's still overall a really solid album, and it's definitely worth checking out. And I'd definitely put it in one of their better albums, even though I do rank 3 Avenged Sevenfold albums higher than this. I think it's still a really solid release from them, and it really, at the time that it came out, it got me really excited for what they were going to do next, which obviously is the album Hail to the King, which I will be reviewing next week. So until then, I've been DisturbedShadow, and be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more of my reviews, be sure to subscribe. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.